Hi and welcome back to the DFS Minute, where this week we're glad to say that we're back in video form. I hope by now that many of you will have had the chance to check out our new website, and if you have any feedback on it, feel free to let us know through all of the usual channels. This week also marks a new record for the biggest DFS contest in Australia. Draft Stars this week running a $50,000 contest for the final 6 games of the AFL round, and we'll touch on some players for that. But first let's get started with a look at the weekend's betting markets. The betting markets are always a great indicator of where stacking might pay off. And this week Adelaide as a 57-point favourite over Gold Coast, they stand out as the pick of the round. Though it's worth noting that they're not included in that Draft Stars 50k contest, so you'll have to look elsewhere there. Of those that are in that contest, North Melbourne, West Coast, Greater Western Sydney and St Kilda, they're all 20 to 30 point favourites, with Melbourne favoured by 39 or 40 over Brisbane, depending on where you're looking. The team totals don't tell us a great deal more than the spreads this week. All the games are fairly close in totals, which means there's probably going to be a lot of diversity in the stacking that people take this week. Over on the NRL side, Penrith are the standout favourite this week. They're 10.5 point favourites over Gold Coast, while Cronulla and the West Tigers are both favoured by around 8.5. South Sydney are 6.5 point favourites in the Thursday night clash if you're playing in those contests. The West's game against Newcastle is the one that the total suggests is also expected to be high scoring, and so that'll be my first go-to when I'm entering full round contests this weekend, or those that involve the Tigers. If we move on then to look at some specific players, the big action in the NRL now tends to come with the one game contests. The Sunday contests now have decreased in size to such a point where I haven't even bothered playing them the last couple of weeks. And Thursday will give us an opportunity to stack South Sydney, who our models have liked, of course, the whole year. We have Jake Marcado near the top of our value chart, but the next grouping of them are all Souths, with Brown, Carter, Walker, Goodwin all leading the way. Greg English is also up there, although he's of course switching positions, so there's a bit of uncertainty around the projections for him. He still, of course, though, has the potential to score well. Marcado and Frizzell are probably the two dragons that I consider in my South stacks. However, of course, in these one-game contests, as I've said before, it's always worth putting in a contrarian lineup. And you'll see that I'll have some lineups that stack Souths, a few that stack Dragons, and some mixed ones as well. On Friday, Jared Wallace as an interchange forward definitely has some value. There's 3 other Brisbane forwards up there as well, Blair, Gillette and Maguire. They're all at the top of our value charts. This one is expected to be a pretty close game, and I think there's a good argument for trying a forward-heavy lineup while also entering lineups that cover the key scoring options for both Brisbane and North Queensland. It's possible, of course, that one team will run away with it, and you want to be in a position to take advantage if and when that happens. Some of my biggest wins in last season's NRL came by taking an underdog in a contest where it was expected to be fairly close, and the underdog then ran away with it by 12, 14 points, and that was enough to mean that an underdog stack won the contest. In general though, that contest, the Brisbane game, I'll play a few lineups in it, but it's not a contest where anything really stands out as an obvious play, and so it's probably one I'll go fairly light on unless something changes before kick-off. Monday's NRL gives us an option to play Vunivalu, who still seems generally undervalued across the board. Wicks, Bromwich and Solomona are all standout values amongst the forwards, and this is another game where the bookies see it being fairly close. It's a game where you want to cover both a close game and one of the teams dominating. It has a lot in common with both the Brisbane and the Souths game earlier in the week. The salaries here are interesting. They open up a bunch of possible lineups, though the expensive players Munster and Jesse Bromwich look the best value. We've called on Madrada recently after riding him for a few games early in the season, but he'll still probably make a few of our lineups. He's always one who could just explode, and you don't want to be without him if he does. Finally this week we played the Saturday or Sunday NRL contests. Lewis Brown, Gerald Beale, Mateora, Takatizi, Moses, they're all players that we think have some value. None of them again really stand out, but if you're going to enter those contests, they're players you'll want to at least consider putting in your team. So let's move on and have a look at the AFL, and it's worth noting of course that we're recording this before lineups are confirmed, so as to get it out before the NRL games start. And so it's always worth double checking any of the players that we mention against the current projections on the site. And in general you should do that anyway, because we update the projections on the site Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night ahead of the NRL contests, bringing in any new information or late lineup changes. So the numbers will sometimes change between what we give you in these videos and the very latest numbers that are on the website. That being said though, Friday night's game between Hawthorn and Sydney is definitely one that could go either way. Tom Papley looks to lead the value charts if you're entering that contest. George Hewitt, of course, is up there as well. Of the pricier options, Billy Hartung, we've played him a lot for Hawthorn this season and he's still up there. Isaac Heaney will be a good option if you're going to pair him with the Sydney duo I mentioned previously. And amongst the premiums, we have Lance Franklin ahead of the others, though Rioli, Bruce, McVeigh, Kennedy are all in close proximity. For the big Bit Draft Stars $50,000 contest and the other ones over the same time period, the big decision will be between taking a Stars versus Scrubs approach or going for some mid-tier players and evening out your salary. If you're going Stars and Scrubs, you're going to be looking at players like both of the Mackenzies, Pearce, Tim Moore. They're the ones you want to look for at the cheap end of your lineup, along with whatever rookies this week's lineups may throw at us. On the other side of that, at the top end of the lineups, Darryl Thomas still presents some value. Ethan Hughes, Michael Walters, Nick Riewoldt for St Kilda, of course, who are up against Brisbane. Scott Lysett for the West Coast, and Ed Kernell all look good options at that point to your end. If you're focusing on Melbourne and St Kilda as your strategy, if you're stacking those teams, Ben Kennedy, Clayton Oliver, Josh Wagner, Viv Mitchie and Christian Petracco are all at the top of our board if we're looking at value. So whichever contest you're going to be playing in this weekend, we wish you the best of luck and we hope to see you taking a chunk of that money that's up for grabs this weekend. If you've not yet checked out Fantasy Insider, we're offering a free 2-week trial to all new customers, and you can sign up for that at www.fantasyinsider.com.au. If you're a current trialist or a past customer, you can get access to both our NRL and our AFL projections from just $19.99 a month. And we'll see you on the leaderboards. Have a great weekend.